Welcome to Live Your Passion. I'm Alex Stephen, your host from Life Transforming Treasures. By sharing the wisdoms from my life journey of raising a successful deaf child and making a life-altering decision, I empower people to transform their lives to one of freedom and fulfillment. On Live Your Passion, our guests share their stories and how they embraced their challenges and overcame them so that you could use some of the wisdoms to help you on your journey. I'm an author, a speaker, and a transformation coach. To assist you in this conversation further, you could get free resources on my website, alexstephen.com. Today I have with me a special guest, and we'll be discussing a book that both of us have co-written, and it's called IEP Made Easy. And it's written by Raz and myself, and Raz is my wife, I want to disclose. And welcome, Raz, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Alex, for having me here.
Yeah, sure. And you could introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what we will speak about today.
Yeah. So as Alex said, I'm Raz Stephen, and I'm from Deaf Parenting. Deaf Parenting is our company. And Alex and I wrote a book, IEP Goals Made Easy, and we did it based on our experience with our deaf son, and who is now a really successful adult, and we wanted to share all the insights we had learned, and we put it in this book.
Right. And the purpose is really to help parents of special needs children to navigate this maze, so to speak.
Yes.
So if you could tell the audience a little bit, Raz, the definition of IEP. What's an IEP for people who are not familiar?
Okay. So there's a joke with special needs parents that when they find out their child needs special needs, they didn't know how to spell IEP. So IEP really stands for Individual Education Plan. So it's a document. It's a by law in the U.S., so we're very, very fortunate in the U.S. to have a law that does it. It's a detailed document that says what special needs services is provided for a student, your child, to access the school curriculum. So the important part there is to access the school curriculum like any other child would.
Okay. So could you tell the audience a little bit, brief synopsis on what the book, what exactly is in the book, a brief description as we get into the conversation.
Yeah. So the book covers, IEP, when you find out your child needs special needs services, usually you're overwhelmed. And the next thing you have to figure out is IEP. And as you said, it's a maze. So the book itself just goes in briefly about what an IEP is, and then who makes up the IEP team, and then it talks about the different stages of the IEP. There are 6 stages in IEP. And then it goes, first it tells you about the role of the special needs office, which is usually the funding department for the special, for your, the services. It talks about your school role, your child's school role, and then it talks about the parent's role. And in the parent's role, there are like 7 steps for an effective IEP.
Okay.
And then after that, we talk about a mother's perspective, what it feels like to have a special needs child, and how you overcome that, and how you use an IEP to overcome that. And then you have a part in there about a father's perspective.
Right.
And in the end, we give a sample IEP, and we have like over 20 tools, practical, easy to use tools that parents could start using right away to help them with the IEP process.
In an action guide format.
Yeah.
So it's pretty helpful. People have been using it, and they find it's really helpful because it comes from our experience coupled with speaking to the superintendent of special needs in the Marlborough School District, with over 20 years of experience, and what he, the input he has to have an effective IEP for your child. So it's a pretty concise and effective a book
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
really
We've done
really
it in a
helpful.
way that make it, when everybody hear IEP, they know it's complicated, and we've, done it in a way that it's easy to get through, and a good reference, and really easy to use.
And that's hence the name IEP, Goals Made Easy.
Yeah.
So want to make it easy because it was not easy for us.
No, it
When
wasn't.
we migrated to this country when Larry was 4 years old, and we had no idea what an IEP was. We left everything and everyone in Trinidad for his education, for his betterment, and Raz and I were in school full time, and she will share with you when the school called us and said they wanted to have a meeting, and we had no idea what an IP was, and they told us, we have to sign this document, so you might want to share what we went through.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that we made us decide to write this book.
Yeah.
Because at the first IEP, we hadn't seen the document, and usually it's a tick document because it talks about when you have a major, a major special needs like deafness, because you have to talk about all the areas of his schooling. And we had an appointment. We went in, and they gave us the day, and you can read 20 pages there, and then ask you to sign it because you have to sign an agreement. And then basically the summary said that he wasn't suited to the program, he will never progress, he will never learn. And it was, when we looked at it, it was all based on some assumptions, so it was inaccurate, saying that Larry started his education at 4 years. So he started his communication and his language development at 4 years. And the teacher who prepared the IEP said he was not progressing as he should be progressing because we spoke a foreign language at home. And that wasn't true. The only language Alex and I know at that point was English. Now we know American Sign Language too.
Yeah.
So we challenged the IEP. And based on that experience, it was awakening for us. We said we will always be proactive with IEPs. And so that was, at the end of it, because Larry, he has his master's now, he's a professor. But we wanted to, all the things we had learned, we wanted to put it in a book. So parents who is going to go through this for the first time or who are going through it now, they can use this book.
Right.
We wish we had one.
We wish we had one. And just imagine, we were young, very young at the time, with 2 kids in school full time, no extended family in a foreign country. And we were in school when they told us we have to come to this meeting. And we took a cab, went to Kendall Elementary in Gallaudet University in Washington, D.C. And they said, sign this document. And we said, what is it? Could we look at it? And as we scanned it, we saw the false assumptions, and we challenged it right there. And the long and short of the story is that they transferred Larry to another teacher.
Yes.
And he was successful there because she took a different approach.
Yeah.
And in his first semester in that school, with the teacher, when that teacher said he wouldn't make it, just imagine how we felt. Because that meant if Larry cannot make it, we have to go back home. And we already sold everything, left our jobs, sold everything, and just, going back home, it wasn't a good thing. We had to leave school. So we challenged it. We got him into a different class. And that same semester, Larry got 4 out of 7 awards.
Yeah.
And that's where his, his education started, and he started to excel. So as Raz said, we want to help parents who's going through this and they have nowhere to turn, to see what we experienced, what the director of special needs in Marlborough had to say, and this could help you navigate through the IEP. Right. So you want to share, some of the steps that parents have to go through in.
Yeah. So one of the things we discuss in the book is there's 6 stages to an IEP. The first one is detection, when you find out your child needs special services to access the school curriculum. The second one is evaluation. The third is creation of the IEP. And the fourth is review, because IEPs are usually done for a year. And then the fourth one is the review. And a lot of times parents just skip over the review because you have to sign again an agreement. And then the third one, the fifth one in fact, is if your child needs special needs services for more than 1 year, then there's a renewal of the IEP for the next year. And then the sixth is completion. So those are the 6 steps, and I can go in a little detail. You want
Yes,
a little bit more
you
detail?
should do that for
Okay.
people's benefit.
Okay. So the first one is detection, when you discover your child needs special services. And that can happen at birth, it can happen in preschool, in kindergarten, and high school. And usually that's a tough one because when you find out your child needs special needs, you're usually surprised and usually, get overwhelmed, especially when it's a significant special need. And then the good news is you have an IEP that will help access the school curriculum. And the second is evaluation, which is an assessment of what can be done for your child to make sure that they get access. And then the third is where you have the detailed document that gives the annual goal. It gives short-term, measurable, specific goals. And it talks about if there's going to be any changes in the classroom, is there going to be any special program, any special support, like occupational therapy, speech therapy, and it's detailed. So there's 3 main members of the IEP team. The parents, which is important. So the parents, as parents, you are an equal member of the IEP team. And then the other members are the school and the funding department, the special needs department.
Right.
And then so at the creation, when the IEP document's created for the year, once everybody agrees, then you sign an agreement. And then the fourth is the review. So it's just like when normal kids get progress reports, but this is mandated by law. You must get progress reports on how your child is doing in the short-term goals to meet the long-term. And that's a lot of times, even when we were doing it, because it was so much paperwork and you're being busy, sometimes you would just gloss over it. But it's like very important because you need to see where your child is and if he or she is on track to meet.
Right.
And then if you want any changes, and then the renewal, then you have to sign again. You're in agreement with the progress.
Right.
And then the renewal for the next year, if your child don't need, then it's resolution there. And then you sign again. So it's always you have to sign an agreement. So you better make sure you understand. And then completion, if it's a short term, it's completed before the child graduates. Or it can go on until the child is 22 years old. In Larry's case, it wasn't, because he's deaf and it's a major disability, it was until he graduated from high school at 17.
Right.
Yeah.
So those are the 6 major steps that
Stages,
that parents have to navigate, or the guardian or whoever is taking care of the child.
Yeah.
And is there anything specific that you want to share with the parents, like from a mother's perspective, from your experience, that you want to share, or, tell them in terms of this is the technicality of it, but in the home, with the people who support the child, it could be grandparents, it could be extended family, how to do that for the welfare of the child.
Okay, so in the book we have the mother's perspective, and when you discover your child needs special needs, it could be overwhelming, and sometimes disbelief. Sometimes you don't want to admit it, and you keep getting different referrals and stuff. And from my experience, what I've seen is many times mothers take the lead in seeing about IEPs or seeing about what needs they get for their children. And it can be overwhelming. It can lead a mother to be resentful. And so I think it's always good to try to partner with your husband or different members of your family and try to team up and share the responsibilities and let everybody get educated and do it. One person shouldn't take it because it's a lot of extra effort.
A lot of extra effort, especially if you have other children.
Yes.
You know, it takes away and the other children could get neglected. So that's why you have to ask for help. You know, if it's grandparents, you know, whoever is involved in the child's life, it's not a bad thing to ask for help because it's new. It could be devastating news, but you have to get over it early for the child's welfare and the child's well-being. And I know when we found out Larry was deaf, we were very young. We were in Trinidad. And we looked for advice. We talked to people. We came to the United States to get him tested in Chicago Mercy Hospital. So we took the steps. It took a few years before we could migrate and find a legal way to come to the U.S. But you have to do, you know, take the steps for the child's welfare and be their advocate.
Yeah.
And that's basically what the book gets into, give you the steps and our experience. And from a father's perspective, I like to share in the book, you know, I talk about when we were in the hospital, when Larry was 1 year old and the doctor said he was deaf. That was the day after his christening and his birthday parties. One of your aunts suggested he might be deaf. So we took him for testing, which was very basic. And I looked at him when the doctor said, you know, your son is deaf. And we asked, what should we do? And he said, take him to school for the deaf. There's nothing we could do. They didn't know the extent of his deafness, if it could be corrected or improved or anything like that. And I looked at him, and in my heart, I said, he needs me now more than ever. And I made that commitment, and I know we both did without speaking words, that we will do the best for him. And this is what we telling parents in the book, is that you have to be a child's advocate. You have to find information. You have to do the homework. And the times I spend with Larry, I have a speech that I give, which is, I will not trade him for the world. The experience we had, you know, with him playing soccer, I signed in at his games, when he played basketball, all these things, I will not trade it for the world. And I want to speak especially to fathers who think, you know, leaving their child, their special needs child, is a good thing to do. You could be leaving the best thing that ever happened to you. And I'm talking from the experience I had with Larry growing up. And I wanted to reach out to these dads and talk to you all. Stay with your child. Help the mothers. Help the child. And it could be the best thing that ever happened to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things I remember is Mr. Tully, when we were talking to him, we had a discussion and we incorporated that in the book. And that was amazing to me that he said 4 out of 5 dads leave the marriage when they find out they have a special needs child. And that was really amazing to me. That's 80%. But it's the child that's suffering. The child is the one that's going to lose out. So
Yeah.
I want parents, and especially dads, to, you know, it's all in the book. We talk about it. We share our perspective. It's all to help the child.
Yeah.
It's all to help the child. Is there anything you like to share? Any in terms of the tools that we have at the back of the book? Is there any specific you like to share? I know there are 20 tools, so you can't share all 20,
Yeah.
but some that you might want to share with the.
So in the tools, we have a sample IEP, what a sample IEP, and then we have a couple of tools that get you organized, like keep track of all the people who's involved in the IEP process, and then all the important IEP dates. And then one of the important, the discovery part of it, it's when you discover that your child needs special needs. It's sometimes, you know, parents are so overwhelmed that they don't move from where they are there to to get the IEP going and to get education for the child going. And we walk through the parent asking, giving them different activities they can do to help them, share that responsibility with different people in their family, and things that they can do, like talk to people, like families who have gone through that process already. Because one of the things that we were so sad about, and we were so uncertain about what Larry's future would be. But when we met deaf adults who were high functioning, who were leading normal lives, then we stopped being sad, and then we started to focus on his education.
Yeah.
So we have some techniques on how to do that. And then also, as I said, one of the important part is when you get the IEP to review, the review times, tools on how you can, at that point you should be asking yourself, is my child on track to meet the goals at the end of the year? And that's like really important, because if your child don't meet the goals at the end of that school year that was in an IEP, then those goals have to go to the next year. So your child become, now is catch up.
Yeah.
So we have some steps that you can do there. Either the IEP, more services has to be provided, or maybe a different placement. So the tools kind of guide you through all the different steps you would have to do. And especially like the different stages, it helps you figure out what stage your child is in right now, and it gives you some tips on what to do.
Yeah, that's great. And I know one of the things, there are 20 tools in there, so it's a good guideline. One of the things the superintendent said when we had the discussion with him, and that's very important, I asked him specifically, what will be your advice to a parent who is new to this, who now got the news? And he said, the thing is, you have to get your team together.
Okay.
Who will support you? You have to realize that you have to be a child's advocate. And one of the things he said from experience is that some of the parents come in, with an attitude, that's not really conducive for the child's best interest to the special needs office. So you want to have a good relationship with the special needs office. You want to have a good relationship with your with the teachers and principal in the school, and then you as the parent have to realize that you are part of the team, and you have to be a team player, and the child is the one who will benefit. And I know we had many instances with Larry where we had to talk to the school, talk to the special needs office, and we always got things resolved. We had to compromise sometimes, and you have to do that. So it will be a new experience. It'll be a new adventure. It'll be something you didn't sign up for. But always keep in mind the child, it comes first. And that is what we emphasize in the IEP Goals Made Easy. And so we talked briefly on, when we came here, we were uncertain. When we found out Larry was deaf, we came for his education. Share with the audience a little bit where Larry is now, some of the things he achieved and where he is now, so that they could see that it was all worth it, and it'll be worth it for your child too.
So Larry right now, so he started his communication and language development at 4. That was when we moved. So we didn't know any science before, he didn't know any science. So Larry has finished his bachelor degree, his master's degree, and he's a professor at Northern Essex Community College. And he is very independent, and he's a leader in the deaf community. And one of the ways that Larry has progressed so much is because of education. And that's why an IEP is so important, because it gives special needs students access to the curriculum. And you might be saying, well, my school is going to do it. And yes, your school, your child's school has all the good intentions, and they will do a good job. And the funding department, they will do a good job too. But for example, in Marlborough, while Larry was there was about 4,000 students, but 1,000 students needed special needs, 1 in every 4, and about 10 had major disability like deafness. But everybody gets so busy that sometimes the extra things that your child need, it falls through the crack. So that's why you have to be the advocate for your child. You have to know what stage the IEP is and make sure everything is going as for the best interest of your child. And that's why we wrote this book, because we want, because sometimes we learned it through experience, and we wish we had known it before. And it's something else that special needs parents have to deal with IEPs. And the more tools they have, and easy to use tools and practical tools, it's better. So I really, really want to encourage parents to understand the IEP process, learn to navigate through it, have an effective IEP for your child. And education is so important for special needs students.
Yeah, it's very important. And we did it by trial and error.
Yeah.
And that's why we're trying to help parents now with the information we have, and talking to an expert like the superintendent of special needs. And one of the things I want to add about Larry and his education, he went to school, Cal State University, Northridge in California. He did very well there. Did his master's in education in Maryland. He and his wife Amrit, who is also deaf, she's from Singapore, and they both have their masters. They have their own home. They have their beautiful child, our granddaughter Ravina. So they live in, what we'll probably call a normal life without hearing. And I want to tell parents who thinks, okay, my child has a disability, they'll miss out on all this. Larry excelled in his passion, which is still soccer. And he played Division I club, he played varsity Division I, NCAA Division I. He represented the United States in the Deaf Olympics in Italy. So he did things that he wanted to do. We as parents supported him. We make sure that he had an effective IEP. We made sure that the things he wanted, he made the decision, but we supported him and told him the pros and cons. And you could do that for your child too. And that's what we want you to get off the IEP Goals Made Easy, a tool to help you.
Yeah.
So Raz, is there anything else you'd like to leave the audience with, you'd like to share with them?
Well, one of the things that you just said about, sometimes when there's a special need, say in a particular area like education, and even like extracurricular, like sports or music, or sometimes there is no special needs there. And as parents, you have to make sure that your child have access to those areas too. So that's one of the things we cover in the IEP book, because they should have access to that, just like any other child will have access to the academic curriculum and to the sports and to the music and different areas. Because a child might need access to the curriculum for math or English or all the different areas, but doesn't have any disabilities when it comes to sports or music. So you have to make sure all of those things are considered, and that can be actually done in an IEP too.
That could be done in an IEP too. So it was so great. Thanks a lot for coming and sharing with us on the show. I really appreciate you gracing us with your presence.
You're more than welcome.
And again, the name of the show is, and we discuss an IEP Goals Made Easy. IEP Goals Made Easy by Alex and Raz Steven. It's on Amazon. And this is our beautiful granddaughter Ravina here on the cover. And just want to share some of our other books, Courage in Our Hearts, A Family's Love Story. And our entire family wrote this book, and it's also on Amazon. And to go with that, we have an action guide, Discover Your Inner Treasure. And this is Ravina starring here again. And what I like to do in each show is for my inspirational life quotes, a collection for your daily motivation. For 365 days of the year, I like to read the quote of the day. And let me see what's today.
September 16th.
The quote of the day is by Nelson Mandela. The greatest glory in living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. how relevant. When you get the news you have a special needs child, you take a fall, but you have to get up. And that's what life is all about. And thanks so much for tuning in today to Live Your Passion. Again, I'm your host, Alex Stephen from Life Transforming Treasures. And you could get more information about me at alexstephen.com. Thank you.
Production support provided by Medfield.tv. Access to our community.